such as what you're eating for lunch today, to have small impacts. And there's business decisions that you can make, some decisions that change your life, and I think going forward from there. And I was in that situation where I was not fulfilled in it, and I thought to myself, what can I do not only to impact on my life, but help other people? And when you're faced with tough decisions in life, you may feel paralyzed, you might feel lost, and to do what you can do, the best you can do, you might be stressed, you might be in a dilemma, and you find that you question yourself about what you're doing, how you're doing. And I went from a well-paid job going into psychology, and that for me was a big change in what I do and how I do what I did. You can probably tell from who I am and how I'm looking. I'm Asian, so you normally associate a lot of Asians to be working either doctors, lawyers, or accountants. And then when I chose this path of helping others in terms of psychology, a lot of those questions, a lot of people were questioning who and what I'm doing. Is it a real job? Is this something you can do as a hobby? Are you going to get paid well? You're not going to earn as much money as you did before. But on the whole, looking back from it, my first degree was in computer science and business management. My first job was working in the back office for the BT service. And then I moved into local government and was working there for many, many years. And life change instantly happened. I went through a relationship breakdown. And there wasn't anyone there to actually say what was going on. You're going back 10, 15 years now. And that was quite a difficult patch for me. And I thought to myself, there's no one there to help me, but I'm going to be there to help someone else. So going forward, fast forward 10 years, I've now done my master's in psychology, head of domestic abuse services, TV host, speaker at events, and also written my book called The First Slap, which we'll talk about from there. So it's a combination of events. And then on this journey, you meet so many wonderful people like yourself, inspiring, working with and working on. So it can be an interesting, it's been an interesting journey, and it's still a journey that's going on. So yeah, some decisions are made for you, some decisions you make yourself.
So true. It's the Mental Health Week in UK, as I understand.
Mental Health Awareness Week, yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about, how would you define mental health to start with? So when we start to talk about something that we are really truly on the same page.
So mental health has different formulations from different countries, but if I base it around the UK and Mental Health Awareness Week, mental health refers to your cognitive, so that's your mind, behavioral and emotional well-being. It's about how we think, how we feel, and how we behave. People sometimes use the word mental health as a disorder, which is not quite correct. Mental health can affect people's daily life, relationships, and physical health as well. Or in the lockdown at the present moment with COVID. We're not used to being imprisoned in our own houses or homes, and that will affect people's mental health in terms of who they are, their upbringing, their day-to-day life, interactions. A relationship will be affected, personal understandings, and the behavioral patterns will change, and how we are and what we do also will be affected. So mental health is literally your health, your internal health, that deals with your mental capacity as an individual.
So let's talk about, and I promised all my audience that we will talk about anxiety, stress, depression, all of that, because I think whether we want or not, and maybe someone deeper than the other and some more affected than the others, but in some ways all of us are, whether have some amount of anxiety, some amount of stress or depression. Let's talk about them and basic terms, like what is even the difference? Maybe the people do not understand the difference for those terms.
So stress, in a nutshell, I'm going to give you very, very loose terms, otherwise you can have another 10 series based on it. So stress is how the body reacts to change that requires adjustment or response. So the body reacts in different ways, physically, mentally, emotionally, and different responses to different people. You can have the same people in two different situations and you might get two different responses. I must stress is a normal part of life. You could experience stress. You can experience stress through your environment, through your body, and through your thoughts. Coming back to COVID, its stress levels will go through the roof because you're experiencing stress from a different perspective because you're restricted, and that changes the body complex. At the most basic level, stress is the body's response to the pressures and situations or events. So with the COVID, our bodies, it may be male, female, might interact and change accordingly. What contributes to stress can hugely differ from person to person and according to our social, economical circumstances, the environment we live in, and our general understanding and makeup. Some common features that we have that can make us feel stress is experience. It could be unexpected or something that threatens your life or something that's restricting you or something you have little control over. However, there's times when stress becomes excessive, too much to deal with, and our stress response is activated. And if it persists over time, it can delay your reactions, it can make you there, or it can make you result in wear and tear on the body. So I could give an example. I've got quite a lot of people here who are pushing through their day-to-day life because it's different to how things are. Staying restricted in the house can be quite stressful. Dealing with kids, schooling them 4 hours a day in topics that you're not too sure of can be quite stressful. Not being able to see your friends and family is stressful. In a way, not going to work is quite stressful. So rather than helping pushing through, these pressures can be overwhelming and sometimes can be hard to cope. However, coping with stress there are mechanisms and methods to deal with stress. First thing is realizing what's causing the problem with stress. Reviewing your lifestyle, building a strong supportive relationship, and also what we do and how we do it. So eating healthily, exercising, curbing drinking and smoking, making time for yourself. And there's a few things like sleeping, eating, actually being mindful and not being too hard on yourself. That's another way of working with stress. And as I said, stress is a normal part of your day-to-day life. If you don't get stressed, there's no one people that won't get stressed. Even now, when I was coming on to do this interview, I'm quite stressed out in terms of I've got the camera angle right, I've got the volume right. What happens if this cuts out? What happens if my charger goes or something? It's all these questions that have effect on people and go, this is how things are, what things are going. So yeah, so then that's in a nutshell what stress is and how to work with stress as a mechanism tool. And realizing stress is not going to go away. It's part of who you are. It's part of your DNA. It's part of your makeup. It's about how you deal with stress. And if you need medical support or you need to speak to a therapist, people should be open to that understanding. Some people's stress levels are high. Some people's stress levels are low. Same with pain. It affects people in different ways. The choices we make, what we do, can be quite stressful. One thing I will say is a lot of people will go through a different number of decision making, which can be quite stressful. And when we talk about decisions, what we do, how we do, can have a negative effect on what we are, what we're doing, and how we're doing. And one thing I'll just going to touch on is, in terms of stress, if a lot of people will I don't know if you heard this analogy. If I don't do this now, I will regret it later. Have you heard of that?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. And it's sensible to consider long-term implications when you make certain decisions, because you don't want to do something that ends up going wrong, but also you don't want to do something that affects you not achieving what you achieve. And that's a fine balance between stress. But it's equally important to consider What might happen if you don't do something? You've got it might be a case with a lot of people now is they've got time on their hands. So what are they going to do? So some people have taken into learning new hobbies. Some people are learning how to cook. Some people are doing a number of different things. But until you don't try those, until you don't open yourself up to understanding, it doesn't work from there. Another question, stressful question on touch base is, what are you afraid of? Have you heard that saying?
Well, I think that fear is the main reason that a lot of people do not take action. So, yeah.
And that's true. People often get stuck with a decision because they're scared of what might happen in the future. And what happens is before they even make that decision, they've already stressed out so much and thought so negatively of a situation, they can't make any positive steps. Failure for people is the hardest point in life. They're scared of success, scared of being happy, and ultimately scared to be in a relationship as well. And a lot of people nowadays are going from there. But what I said to people is what does your heart say? What is your heart saying to you? What's your gut instinct? What do you know when you feel that in your stomach, in the pit of your stomach? What's going on there for you? That's something you need to listen to your gut instinct. Put aside the conversation, unwanted advice, judgments from others. Just go there, just breathe for a moment, and go to yourself. Actually, what do I want to do? Where is my happiness in this? Yes, people tell you what to do, how to do it, give the experiences, but not until you actually want to do something, you truly do it. Another point I always check on the stress is, who are you doing this for? Are you doing this for your parents? Are you doing this for society? Are you doing for culture? Are you doing for tradition? Are you doing this for your next door neighbor? Or all of the above? But sometimes the question you forget is, you're doing this for yourself. I've got people who are studying, who've gone on to university and spent a number of years studying for a topic, and then they find out they don't like that topic or that subject, but they still continue to do it because they've studied for it. And then they spend the next 10, 15 years of their life practicing a subject or an occupation they don't really like. It makes them miserable, stresses them out. And then you've really got to figure out who you are, what are you doing for. So there's a number of different areas where stress kicks in, but you've got to really question yourself in terms of why and what you're doing. What is stopping you? What is making you? What is the benefits? What's not the benefits? So there's a few things there that's just literally touched upon that one can look into and address what is and how things is. And then moved on to anxiety. Okay, in a nutshell, anxiety is the body's natural response to stress. So when you're feeling apprehensive of what's to come out, it may be your first day at school, a job interview, a speech that you're doing. What you're feeling there is anxiousness or anxiety. It's the unease, it's that fear, it's like with me now. Am I talking too fast? Am I talking too slow? Can people hear me? Everyone's got these feelings of anxiety that kick in for themselves. Some people find it hard to focus on the anxiety, and it becomes a worry. Their feelings of anxiety are more constant, and they affect their day-to-day life, and then that spreads on to their family and friends. People start noticing what's going on. The anxiety levels might be higher. It may be crossing over from work, from relationships. Even now, we're in this great world epidemic, and a lot of people are anxious about what's going to happen. Are their jobs going to be secure? Are they going to be able to pay the rent? Are they going to be able to pay the bills? Are we going to find a cure for COVID? And these what-if questions put stresses on the body, and that turns into anxiety. And when you get anxiety levels, then a lot of things will go on. You're not able to focus. You're not able to think. You're not able to eat properly. You're not able to drink properly. Your sleep pattern gets affected. So there's loads of body changes with chemical reactions that happen here. Is there a cure for anxiety? It's about working with your negative emotions, your thoughts, your stresses, your strains. A lot of people are trying to do doing mindful meditations, listening to music, deep breathing, and can reduce anxiety levels. But exercising regularly. I know a lot of people, especially in the UK, you can't exercise or go to the gym. Maybe go for a walk. Give your time some space from there. And breathing is also allows you to work on the anxiety level. I'll give you an example. When you're in an argument with someone, what tends to happen? What tends to happen is you get heated in an argument, and it becomes a point scoring system. I don't know if you've ever been in an argument recently. Can you remember an argument you've been to recently?
Well, usually I try to breathe before I go into one. So
have you noticed how when you start off in an argument, say, I don't know, an argument recently for me, oh, you left the toilet seat up, quickly turns into, my God, why did I marry you? You're a horrible person. You're down the road. And a lot of times what happens is when we're in an argument, we tend to point score. So she said this, I'm going to say this. He said this, I'm going to say this. And we don't listen. And our body tends to go, what happens is we don't take enough oxygen into our body. So our heart starts pumping deoxygenated blood. And when they pump deoxygenated blood, it goes straight to the brain. And you probably heard the words fight or flight. And the brain goes into a mode where it's literally puzzled now what to say and how to say. So when we're in an argument, we really, really do we listen. We become really, really anxious, might start shaking, clench fist, might start even get red in the face. And then what happens is we go from short-term memory, which is like what's happening now, to long-term memory. So our mind focuses on what's been said 5, 10 years ago. And what happens is we just end up talking garbage because we're not breathing properly. We're getting anxious. We're getting angry. We're leading to a number of things, and we're not happy. And sometimes, well, most of the times, we will say things that we don't really mean. That can be quite hurtful, can affect people, both work or relationships. It's not only till we start breathing again and we think, actually, what did I say? Why did I say this? So when you are quite anxious and you're in the angry mode, the hardest thing to do is breathe, because if you breathe, you've got to stop that argument. But you're so in tuned to winning that battle, you want to win at any cost. And that is the difficult thing, is because humans are quite competitive. So when you're in the argument, or when you're getting quite anxious, or you're feeling yourself panicking, shaking, getting hot, mumbling, just take some time out. Just get some breathing in. Just say, hang on a minute, I'm not talking straight here. Do you mind if I take a couple of seconds to gather my thoughts? And it shows you've been heard. Because the worst thing in an argument is if you've not been heard, you've not been listened to.
that's very interesting fact that you brought this out. I think I haven't ever heard that we actually go to the long-term memory. That explains a lot why we tend to dig up all the things, but it makes perfect sense. I never thought about it, like you just brought it up. So it's very interesting.
The mind is a very fascinating thing. It works. It can take you around the world in seconds. And we process, we don't give our mind enough credit sometimes about what it does and what it can do. And we've got years and years of pent up frustration as well, built up. And sometimes we need to unbox what needs to be boxed and process what we put to the side. And long-term memory is exactly that. It's the fears, it's the thoughts, it's the feelings. Sometimes you can be walking the street or going to a school, and you can remember your first day at school and how difficult it was. And you're going back 10, 20 years. So it can conjure up those negative emotions. And then what do you do with those emotions? And until they're not processed, you've got to work with them. And likewise with relationships, and I'm slightly going off a tangent here, but relationships are quite key. And I've got this ABC rule of my my rhetoric in relationships. So A is for when you're in a relationship. There is for action. Any actions you do, what's going on from your attitude towards the other person. Sometimes you can say something, but the way you say it, the tone you say it, or the pitch you say it, totally changes the whole situation.
Yeah.
Second thing is so that's your A, your attitude to who or what you are to the relationship, to the person, but also to yourself as well. Then you've got behavior. If the behavior in a relationship is not doing well, you're going to struggle. If you're not coming home on time, if you're not doing what you need to do, your behavior changing, or you're being more withdrawn, it's going to affect the relationship. And the last one, which is the most important one, the C, is communication. If in a relationship your communication breaks down, you're on a losing path there as well. If you're not talking to each other, if you're not being healthy communication, that's going to affect a relationship quite badly. So one thing I notice when I work with couples is if your relationship's not working, if you're not communicating well, you've got to do something. And you can't just say, we need to talk now. The talking needs to start. The openness needs to be start from the beginning of the relationship. If you're not going to do it, 6 months, a year down the road, you will turn around and say to the person, let's be open, let's talk. Then look at you and go, so what have you been hiding from before?
Yeah, so that's true. So let's talk about the very concerning topic that is the domestic violence and your
I think we missed out on depression as well.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, depression is one of the most interesting topic, because depression is more than just feeling unhappy or fed up for a few days. Most people will go through depression without actually knowing they're depressed. They'll go through periods of low when they're depressed, when you're sad, and it can be weeks and weeks. Some people think depression it's not a genuine health condition. It is. You can go through conditions, but with the right support, most people with depression can make a recovery. Some people go through periods of depression or feeling down, but the worst thing you could tell someone in depression is snap out of it, pull yourself together, just sort yourself out. Because a lot of the people who are going through depression are going through a tough time. They're not able to cope, they're not able to do certain things. And this is where a good network around you is quite important. So physical symptoms about depression, I'm just going to read out a few for you. So it goes from there. It's low moods of sadness, feeling hopelessness, helplessness, not feeling happy, low self-esteem, guilt, anxiousness. So there's the number of different things here that people go through that are affecting their feelings and the depressed. So first thing I'll say to them is actually go to see their GP first, see what's going on from a medical perspective. And if you do feel that you are going through depression, especially in this COVID-19 period, seek medical support before you do anything from there. And there are ways that we can work around it. But sorry, that's very, very briefly what depression is.
Perfect. So I already rushed. I think there's a lot of, and especially here in Mexico, we have seen a huge increase of domestic violence cases, and there are different associations which are daily trying to make impact and change, and really giving the support as obviously there's, as you mentioned, all those factors that we need to deal with, being in under stress because of the COVID. And so let's talk about it. What is your experience? And you have worked on that field for quite some time now. So what do you see now, and what are the main causes for domestic violence?
Okay, Well, in the UK, domestic violence is broken down to a number of terms. So you've got the psychological abuse, you've got the physical abuse, you've got sexual abuse, you've got financial abuse, and you've got emotional abuse. And those are pretty much the bigger terms of what the abuse are. Alongside those, you've got other factors as well. You've got controlling behavior. So this is someone making you feel isolated, controlling who you are, cutting you away from your family, not letting you do what you need to do, depriving them of independency, and stopping them from doing what they would do on a day-to-day basis.
So what you're referring is narcissistic behavior.
It can be narcissistic behavior, but narcissistic behavior is slightly different. It doesn't have to be in domestic. Sorry, I wanted to say that when we talk about domestic violence, it's not just females. It can be male as well. And we are seeing a big rise in male domestic abuse cases, especially in the UK. But a lot of the time, what we talk about domestic abuse, we only factor in physical. We don't see the psychological, we don't see the financial, we don't see the sexual, we don't see the emotional, because those are hidden. Those are very, very hidden. But the physical, if someone punches you, cuts you, scratches you, kicks you, bites you, you can physically see those. So it's more evident. Psychological, it takes a lot longer. Financial, period of time, it's hidden. And it can happen to anyone, no matter of their background, age, job, sexuality, where they live. It could be builders, bankers, dustmen, doctors, teachers, hosts, speakers. It can affect anyone and everyone. And that's something I just want to touch base with, is when people go, it can't happen to me, guess what? It can happen to you. It can happen to a man, woman, any gender of it from there. And I'm going to give you some examples of incidents of domestic violence that people aren't aware with. So I'm going to give you some examples of isolation, which is more to do with psychological. It's like limiting people to talk to their friends and family, work colleagues, not allow them to do outdoor activities. That does include him or her. So if you're in a relationship and if you want to go out with your friends and they go, no, you're not going out with your friends unless you would go with me. It's a form of isolation, not letting the other person breathe. Constantly checking on their whereabouts. There's a difference between safety, but continually checking to make sure what's going on. Verbal abuse. Constantly shouting, yelling, swearing, verbal humiliation in front of others or in private. Constantly blaming at you, making fun out of you, laughing at you, blaming you for your own failures. All forms of isolation and verbal abuse. Threatening behavior. Threatening someone with violence, with actually not hitting them, but going close to them. Use of weapons, knives, irons, kitchen utensils as well. Threatening to use violence against their friends and family, or even pets. Threatening to use or destroy personal items, something that you cherished. I had a case where the perpetrator said, I'm going to break that mirror of yours that your mother gave to you and the mother's passed away. Something they hold quite dearly. Threatening to remove your children, saying to them, you're not going to see your children again. And then you've got this, if you work on the more deeper psychological abuses, is intimidation, withholding affection, constantly insulting them, excessive stalking them, using social media sites, checking on them, what they're doing, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And if you look at the power of control, you tell them each and every time what to do and how to do it. Telling them that you never see your children again if you don't comply to what they say. Using force to maintain control and power. Forced marriages. Another thing. And then you've got the financial abuse. And this is an abuse that a lot of people don't really know about because it's quite new. So controlling the family income is one of them. Not allowing you to spend money unless permission is being given to. Making an account for each and every pound, dollar you spend. Another thing I've noticed quite a lot, especially against men, is running up huge credit card bills in their name because they've got the details. So acting on fraud and purposely defaulting those payments so they get CCJs or they get blacklisted. Sexual abuse is quite common now as well. I don't know if in Mexico you've got forced marriages that happen, sexual harassment, pressures, degrading sexual language, and ultimately rape. And then you go to false allegations, bring up the police, getting the police involved, and working from there. And then you've got other things like stalking as well, which is quite used for controlling behavior, following you to from work, checking your phone, checking emails, damaging property or clothing. So yeah, and then something else we'll touch on nowadays is digital media stalking you, or digital media. I've got a lot of cases now where I'm working on the States about revenge porn as well, and that's been used to get back at them. And so you may have left the relationship, but they're still abusing you after that. So that's just some of the abuses that are going on and examples of, but there are many, many more behaviors that can affect people and affect people's lives.
So, but what would, if someone really understands, but as you say, like the most common ones are the ones which leave a mark, sort of, and it's easier. Exactly. But what should someone do if you are in the circumstances that whatever you mentioned now, like any other type of abuse? What type of help should they seek out?
It's a bit difficult because a lot of people in the domestic abuse, the first thing that goes is their self-confidence, and they become used to the abuse. So it's never the case that it's a separate thing. Some people are getting abused and don't realize they've been abused. It's only when things get quite tricky and elements of children or social services are involved that people realize that they're going through domestic abuse. A lot of the times when people, especially with men, it's a lot to space to their pride. But sometimes even just knowing what's going on is a big step. So in the UK, there's charities that are set up, domestic violence charities that we set up that you can talk to and work with. And even now in the COVID, the refuge charity here have seen an increase of 125% in domestic violence cases. So it's about checking in with yourself on what's going on. There is no easy thing, because if you can't say to someone you're in domestic violence, leave the household, because it's not possible, especially where we are now in COVID, where we're not able to work with and work on. Financially, it's not easy. You leave and go where? The country's on lockdown. You're in a house where your abuser is abusing you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There is no escape. And there's a big factor of fear. If I leave, what happens to my children? What happens if my abuser finds out? What is he going to do then? And that's not easy. It takes in the UK, it takes 37 attempts of abuse before you even think about help. 37 incidents.
Wow. Then you really understand. I have had spoken with some of the specialists on the domestic violence as well, and they always bring up this, that if you don't change and if you don't take action, then one day you will die in that house. but that makes sense, like why we do have so many cases which end up by that way, because if it really takes you 37 times, then obviously there are cases which do not even continue up to 37.
And you've got to remember, going back to the stress, anxiety, and depression, what will happen is you may leave a domestic violence house. Let's say you're fortunate, you leave, things go from there. You still feel the stress of leaving, the guilt. Why did I leave? What was going on? And those thoughts that you had, because what happens is your state of anxiety when you're in a volatile relationship, and those thoughts that you have will be parked to the back of your mind. And the thoughts you have is on survival. How do I survive? So what then happens once you leave a relationship, if you don't get the proper support, proper therapeutic, psychological support, what will happen is those thoughts that are in the back of your mind will need to be processed. So when your body feels that it's safe to process it, what will happen is thoughts that are in the back of your mind will come straight to the front of your mind, and it'll say, deal with it now. A lot of times, if you notice, when people leave domestic violence relationships, they'll end up falling into depression because those thoughts are not they're not processed, they're not worked upon. And you will notice a lot of people will go back to the abuser because it's easier to go back to the abuse than process those thoughts. How many times I've witnessed and I've said, but he still loves me, or he loved me and I'm going back for him, or I'm going back because of the kids, or I don't want to be a burden on my family. Or I've had cultural instances where people have said, the community is not accepting me for who I am. The culture is not doing it. The religion's not doing it. It's not easy to break away. And what happens is when they go through that depression stage, they say, you know what, I'd rather go back. He was beating me, but at least I felt the love. At least I didn't have these memories I have to deal with now. And that can be a big hindrance, especially in domestic violence, when people go back to the relationships. And a lot of people do go back.
Well, yeah, I see a lot, not only domestic violence cases, but even with, if we see, since we have been grown up, the importance of the mindset has been so much pushed that the importance of really go through our emotions and deal with our emotions is always like, even being a boy, like, don't cry, boys don't cry. Like it starts so all over how we actually put ourselves in a situation that we're not used to, and we are not equipped to deal with our emotions, because the society tells us to put the emotions aside, suppress them, and then we, as you just described, we are in a situation that we don't know what to do with them. So it's really interesting that you brought up that. You have written a book called The First Slap. What is this book about, and what was the inspiration for you to write it?
So the book is based on a lady called Tara K. Tara could be Tara Kaur, Tara Khan, Tara Kumar, Tara King. It could be any. So what it was is I met up with Tara and we wanted to do something that is different. So the book, as I mentioned it here, it's available on Amazon. It's called The First Slap. And what it was is there's loads of books out there that tell people about their domestic violence stories. But there are very little books that actually have psychological input in the book. So what the inspiration was to help other women and men going through domestic abuse to understand what's going on. So like how I've explained it to you now, what I did with the First Slap, it's 8 chapters, 8 very small chapters. Each chapter is split into 2 sub-chapters. So you've got part A of the chapter, which is Tara's story. And part B of that chapter is my and Dr. Rav, who is a psychiatrist, her input on actually what's going on here in this chapter, giving a psychological insight to what people are facing, what's going on in this, and what can you do. So it spans about 15 years of Tara's life when she tried to get away from a domestic abusive relationship. So it took her 15 years to get away from this relationship. So at each stage, each end of each chapter, there's another chapter which tells about the psychological input to what's been done and what you can do. And that was my inspiration. That was really the reason why I actually wrote the book, is to show people, A, it can be done, and B, have a psychological understanding of what you're going through or what Tara's going through. You might not feel 99% of what Tara's going through, but you probably feel 60 to 70% of it. So that was the main inspiration to write the book.
This is very powerful, and I think that that could help a lot of people that are going through any type of abuse in a sense. So I want to thank you, everybody that has joined the call. I'm going to ask Harpal your 3 recommendations how to dominate the decade, but whoever has a question, whoever has a comment or recommendations, you can share them here, whoever is joined here in Zoom in the chat area. And also, if you're looking at the Facebook Live, I see the comments and the questions below Ragne Sinika's profile. I cannot see the Coral desk, but nevertheless, if you have a question, leave your question there. And after that session, we are going with Harpal to see those questions, and every question will be answered. So don't worry, if I don't see your question now, the question is going to be answered anyways. So what would you say, what are your 3 recommendations how to dominate the decade?
3 is only 3, it's not enough.
Well,
first thing,
at least 3.
Yeah. First thing I will say to people is make themselves the center of their universe. If you make yourself the center of your universe, then you are responsible for your happiness. So that'd be my first one for you, is make yourself your center of your universe. Second thing is knowledge. Educate yourself. Educate, understand, and work with. And last thing is once you've helped yourself, help others.
So first the mask on you, and then you help the others. Very well.
I'll give you an example. You've probably gone on you've flown in an aeroplane, haven't you?
Yes, of course.
So the captain says to you, we're going from Mexico to Hawaii. We're flying at 30,000 feet. Smooth journey ahead. However, if you feel turbulence, the gas mask will fall from above. What do you do with that gas mask?
First put yourself and then help others, yes.
Why do you put yourself first?
You can't help any other when you're already down.
There you go. That's the reason why I said you have to help yourself first before you can help others.
Yeah, that's very true. So we have here a question, how do we get rid of anxiety before any session being a speaker?
So first thing I'll say is know what you're talking about. So preparing, planning, but also do some breathing. When you're breathing, your anxiety will go because you're allowing your body to relax. Anxiety only works when your body is in flight or flight mode. So you're quite panicky, you're quite with it. So if you can start breathing or working on your breathing, take some time and do what both of us are doing, is take a sips of water. Simple things allowing you to breathe, to actually focus, allowing you to actually go, actually, I can take my time. Speaking is, when you're speaking, you're not there to speak just to give information, you're there to emphasize. When you're speaking, you need to be clear, you need to have a clear tone, but also you need to take your time talking, because the slower you talk, the more engagement you get. If you're going to talk 100 miles an hour, no one's going to understand what you're saying on the phone, just like I'm doing now. Hopefully that's made that person understand how things are from there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Harpal. That was my question. My name is Rashmi, and thank you so much, because this is, however, so many times we say, but before speaking into any session, this kind of anxiety, it comes in very, very, normally. So I thought,
Rashmi, just take a bit of time now, and just take
okay.
2-3 deep breaths. Just try this right now. Just take 2 or 3 deep breaths now. So in through your nose, and out through your mouth. And again, in through your nose, and out through your mouth. Now gather your thoughts. This is what you want to say. And when you feel comfortable, when you feel relaxed, please say what you want to say.
All right, lovely. Thank you so much.
So another question, how do we modify stress so that change is permanent?
No, nothing you do is permanent. You have to work on yourself, because if I say to you what I did when I was at 5 years old is the same thing I'm going to do at 25, 15, 25, 35. You have to work on yourself and change yourself and adapt yourself. Even your blood system in your blood changes every 7 years. So what you've got to do is constantly be self-reflecting and make yourself the center of your universe and figuring out what I need to do to change things. So be more reflective and keep that change going and keep it momentum, because nothing grows in stale water. Everything has to be in fresh water.
Another question, how do you implement your ABC recommendations into a relationship that is already ongoing?
This is a difficult thing. You have to, anything you do has to start from the beginning. So your attitude, your behavior, and your communications, you've got to go from there. If the relationship's going downhill, you need to reset it. So it could be either through therapy, either through moderation, something of that nature that allows you to actually work through. Because there's going to be quite a lot of material incidents that need to be worked on before you can take things out. I'll give you an example of a plant pot. Until you don't clean that pot out, you can't put any more plants in. So you have to get rid of that stuff that's already in the pot to then put new material, to put new plants into that pot. So it could be a case of you working through your relationship through counseling, through mediation, just so you can, or even if you get to the point of going, actually, we need to talk things through, and you actually go, first of all, start by saying, look, you need to reflect on what you've done wrong first. So you look at what you've done wrong in the relationship, what they need to be done, and what needs to be focused. And sometimes if you focus on a relationship together rather than point scoring, that works. When I speak to my couples, I go, if you're in a boxing ring, you're prepared to fight. If you're outside the boxing ring, you're not going to fight. So you've got to go with a mindset of going, actually, I'm not here to fight with you. I'm not here to argue with you. I'm here to work with you. And that's what relationships are about. It's not about the individual. It's about the we. It's about the us. What we can do together, what we can achieve here. And that's the focus that we should do. And once you work on that focus, then you can then work on the ABC, your attitude, your behavior, and most importantly, your communication.
Agree. What is the hardest lesson you have ever learned?
The hardest lesson I've ever learned is not to believe in myself. You've got to start believing in yourself. You've got to go, actually, I am the center of my universe. I need to focus on myself before I can do anything else. Ironically, when I was doing my training, when I was finished my master's, I actually went in to a homeless shelter, and newly qualified, I was sitting there, I was thinking to myself, I know what I am head was full of my shoulders, my body was full of ego. I've done this. I've got this name. I've got these letters, names after my name. I know what I'm talking about. So go to this homeless shelter, and I'm sitting there, and this gentleman walks up, and he's really scruffy. He's got old clothes and tatty, and his glasses are broken, and I sat down with him, and he goes, I said, so how can I help you? He goes to me, what do you mean help you? What can you do? We got in a conversation. He goes to me, who are you? What you do? So I gave my introduction. I've studied psychology and counselling, been doing it for a number of years, and I'm professional. I know what I'm talking about. I know how things are. And then he turned around and said to me, okay. And then he told me his life story. He told me how he was the captain of a ship, a merchant navy. He's got 5 degrees and three masters. And I'm like, okay, I've only got 1 master and 1 degree. So that put things into context. And then he showed tell me how his life went down when he started his break off his relationship, and how he went from earning a 6-figure salary and now he's homeless. And difficulties he faced, drugs, alcohol misuse. And that for me was my biggest lesson I've learned, that hang on a minute, I might be up here now, I can be down there anytime. So that was the most toughest lesson I learned. And the first time I realized that you need to sometimes just be that bit humble and go, actually, what am I here for? It's like now, we're in COVID. There's no gym, no work, no cinema, no mall, no shopping, no nothing. All the money I've bought can't get me to the cinema to watch the latest movie, can't get to the gym. What can I do? It's working on relationships, working on that love, the commitment, but also the ability to help others, put a smile on those faces. So those are the 2 biggest lessons I've learned. One strike at the beginning of my career, and something now as well.
And the last question, what we are going to answer is, how are you handling domestic violence awareness in UK during COVID?
It's not a one-person job. So you have to work with I'm working with a number of organizations, Lonely being one of them. And it's about collaboratively working together to make a difference. I'll give you an analogy. You've got 5 fingers here. This thumb, these 4 fingers here. Individually, they can't do nothing. But together, it's power.
Beautiful answer. So if someone was listening to you and they want to ask, maybe they are in a delicate situation and they don't want to ask the questions in front of others, how can someone follow you? How someone can contact you?
So you got my website, so www.cwcounselling, that's COUNSELLING.com is there. And then you can find me on Facebook, Facebook.com/D Delta Harpal, HARPAL. On Instagram, it's my @Harpal, HARPAL chat, CHAT. So you can find me on from there. So, and if they want to make contact with you, I'm sure you can pass on my details to them as well.
Yes, sure. And whatever, as everybody hopefully knows, if there's new people on the call, then if today you got an idea of you, or you have a message that you think that more people should know about, then yes, please contact me. We are telling the untold stories. We have authors, speakers, coaches here to share their experience on their expertise areas to help you to take action, to help you to change your life. And is there anything that you would like to say as a final message to everybody that are listening today?
What I want to say is you're responsible for your happiness. Don't give that to someone else. Don't give that responsibility to someone else. to make you happy. You are in control of that. Make sure you can make yourself happy.
Beautiful notes. I hope you did make notes today. I hope you wrote down the ABC. I hope that you will take action on them, because one thing is to write things down, the other one is to take action. And usually if we don't apply something to our lives within 48 hours, we never will. So today you have the chance to become the hero of your life by taking action. But you also have the possibility to change someone else's life by sharing this video, and you never know who might need to hear what we discussed today in this video. So become the hero by doing just one click and share this video. I will see you tomorrow. Actually, the 11 a.m. will be pre-recorded due to the fact that the person also from UK, and she's actually the domestic violence survivor. So she's going to speak her story. This is going to be pre-recorded, and it will premiere at the same time, at the same place. So you can take a look at this interview, 11 a.m. Los Cabos time, 6 p.m. UK time, on the Coral Desk or Ragnar Sinika's profiles in Facebook. And also it's in the YouTube channel for Coral Desk. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your dedication to educate yourself. Thank you for pursuing a better life for yourself and for your loved ones. And I see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.